All right, we're back. We are joined by JOETOWN, the namesake of the band, and they have an incredible rendition of the AC/DC classic. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
Coming from Studio City to Connecticut. We love it, man. I know you know your old stomping ground out here, and from east to west. It's a big, long country, and certainly did a band like AC/DC learn that when they started touring here. You could tour Australia in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Same with England. But in America, boy, you better be ready, man, because a state like California and Texas, they're like countries in themselves. There's
Absolutely.
20 markets in each of those states, so it's pretty amazing. But tell us about starting your band, JOETOWN, and how it's evolved over the years.
Oh, it's been a long evolution. I'm not new at this. I started the band in 90 around 94 and went in the studio and did a record called The Wheel and released that and started building things up in my area around Connecticut and Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, basically, New England down to New Jersey, and just playing and playing and playing and playing little places, playing big places, playing wherever they'll have us. At the time, the band was a trio. It was just three of us, and we bounced around a lot, played a lot of shows, a lot of gigs, really small, scrappy, kind of the classic 90s indie band story. Just really getting in the trenches and doing it. And I just basically never stopped. Started then and just kept doing it. Never stopped releasing stuff, never stopped playing, maybe slowed down here and there playing, depending on what was going on. But I have a studio background, so as far as output of material, there's always been a record happening at all times. We've been releasing singles lately, but I come from a time of records. So not even people don't even people say albums, whatever. I still call them records because that's how I think of it. It's kind of cool. Vinyl's coming back, so now I can be correct in my terminology again. But
Yeah, there'll always be a record store to us. I don't care
exactly.
what else they sell: incense, T-shirts, tapestries. It's a record store, and that's where we discovered so many of our favorite artists and bands. And back then with the mom and pop store, you could go in and ask the proprietor, "Hey, what's new?" You know, you couldn't do that so much, with the big chain stores or the corporate stuff. They're kind of
Yeah,
paid to push whatever's on the end cap there.
when I was a kid, there was a couple of places right by me. There's a place, these are the places, even though they're out of business now. There was a place called Merle's Record Rack. There was a place called Cutler's near me. And those were the places that had all the records. And it was real important. They had all the bootlegs too. So the stuff you just couldn't find everywhere, you could find there. And I ate it up. The conversation here we're having is about the long way to the top thing we just did with AC/DC. And I can remember when I got exposed to AC/DC, going to those shops and just hunting for everything. And I remember I had a bootleg of Dirty Deeds like way before it came out, and and me and my buddies, we'd listen to it, and we're like, we can't, like, why isn't this out? Why, like, what's up with this? Where did this record come from? How come people don't know about? Why isn't it on the radio? And we didn't get it, and then it finally came out and was huge. But I love the record store culture and everything it's about.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story. I used to, like I said, I lived on the Canadian border just under Vancouver, last city in America, Bellingham, Washington. And I drive down about an hour and a half to Seattle to see the big shows at the arena. I remember coming out of one show, I was about to get on the freeway, and there's a Tower Records right there, before you jump on the freeway. And I immediately, just checking certain, bins in the import section. and boom, here is If You Want Blood, You Got It, the live album. I didn't hear anything about it coming, being made. It was
Greatest
just like,
live records, one of the greatest live records ever.
oh my
Period.
God, it was there. And you look at the album cover and you're like, oh my God, Bond and Angus being impaled by the SG. It is unbelievable. Yeah, you drop the needle, the audience is stomping and shouting their lungs out. They are not watching a show, they are part of the show. And yeah, no question, one of the greatest live albums ever made, right up there with Humble Pie, Rockin' the Fillmore, and The Who Live at Leeds, and all the great ones. But yeah, what a surprise, you know. And of course, we had Highway to Hell coming right after that, and then you know, of course, the tragedy. But you guys have been survivors, just like those early days of AC/DC. You know, working your ways through you know, a time that's not glamorous, but you do it for the love. And any feedback you get from the audience and the club owners or whatever is gratifying. But talk about your rendition. I know you say you had played it live before, but when did you decide we got to get in the studio and we got to do our rendition of It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll?
Yeah, well, we'd been doing a bunch of civic events and parades and things like that because we got asked and we started doing it and we loved it. Like, being in a parade, you're going through town, there's all ages. So we started doing those type of things, and after doing them, we kind of realized it's like, like this is like the AC/DC video with the band on the truck, and then we remembered it, and we are just like, let's go for it. We had, because our guitar player, because the other guitar player in the band, Kerry Galarny, plays bagpipes. He had a band of his own, the Fightin' Galarny Brothers, which is a totally bagpipe based rock band, but like really playing like this hybrid of like techno rock and Irish standards. It's very hard to explain, but the Fighting Galarny Brother name gives it a little bit of is a little bit informative of what it is. But he was doing that, and when I got him in the band, because I wanted to step up more into being a front man versus just playing guitar and singing all the time. I mean, it's cool. I loved the trio thing, and it's cool. I just wanted to get another guitar player, expand the sound, be able to do more guitar harmonies, not have to play everything, not be stuck on the mic with both hands on the guitar all the time. So when I got Kerry in the band, it wasn't really a conscious decision of, oh, I got to get a bagpiper. It's like, oh, I got to do that AC/DC tune, or I got to make sure and like integrate bagpipes into the band. That wasn't the plan at all. He's just a really badass guitar player, and I knew I could just put whatever parts needed to be done, and he just he is a total shredder and could handle it. But after him being in the band a little bit, we started doing the song, and then like every time we would do It's a Long Way to the Top, people would just go effing apeshit. Like people just lose their crap over bagpipes. I don't know what it is about the instrument. It's the war cry instrument of it, but people go crazy. So we do that, and ultimately we just, between that and doing like the civic events and parades, like the big public type things, I was like, we got to do it and do the video. We're already on doing these things on a truck. We got to let's just do it up. So I we had been playing it a lot of different ways because we'd mess around and jam on it, and Kerry'd be running around whatever town or club or venue with wireless with the bagpipes going all over the place. So we nailed down like an arrangement that was more close to the original, with a little bit expanded bagpipe featured stuff towards the end of it. I mean, there on the original, it's pretty much just the melody with the bagpipes, but Kerry is like, I mean, we've done he's been on a lot of shows around here and stuff like that, and he's kind of known as the Yngwie of bagpipes, because he just like plays bagpipes, but he's a shredder guitar player, so he just burns on the bagpipes like a shredding guitar player. And 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 that kind of, that's what makes, I mean, if there's one thing that's a little different, we try to keep the whole spirit, especially lyrically and Bon and all that, and the attitude and the feel of the song. But if there's one thing that's different, like the bagpipe stuff on our version of the song is expanded and done. It's expanded like an approach from someone who's like really kills on the instrument. We still do the part and that melody and everything, but I mean, there's a bagpipe solo in it. I mean, there's a little. So if there's one thing that we did different, putting our stamp on it, it's that. The rest of it just really tried to keep true to the spirit of it, and that's what the song is to me. It's the rock and roll spirit. So recorded it, and I tried to keep the production, I wanted to sound aggressive and big and everything, but not like I didn't want to sound like a 5-figure death punk record, doing AC/DC. So I kept it, I kept it pretty true to, the band in a room sound as well. So and that's what we did. We're really proud of it, and hopefully it if anything, I hope that some people enjoy it, and it makes, it gives people the warm fuzzy feeling who love AC/DC and know the original.
Well, yeah, you pull out that bagpipes, it's like the battle axe in Braveheart. People are ready to cheer the troops on. It's a massacre waiting to happen in a rock and roll club. And like you said, this is a song that is special in the AC/DC catalog, because besides trying it a couple of times, in the pubs and all that, it was kind of unwieldy for the band. Number one, Bon wasn't a professional bagpipe player, and two, it was hard enough to have drums, bass, and guitar in those pubs. So it became part of the folklore of AC/DC. Like, the place to hear it is our international version of High Voltage. It's the leadoff song. You drop the needle, and those chords, Malcolm Young and Angus, and then Bon coming in. Of course, Mark Evans played bass on the original, and of course, the one and only, Phil Rudd. So it was really pretty special. It's nothing that you could really go see and hear on a normal basis at an AC/DC show, and like you said, it's not part of the canon that you hear in all the live DVDs and live albums and everything. So definitely a unique song. Now, will this be a part of an album, or is it just a standalone single?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of laughing as you ask me that. I don't know what to do about records anymore. I mean, for a while I was like kind of recording songs and trying to put a record together, but then I just started finishing individual songs and putting them out one by one. And it's tough. I mean, between YouTube and all the streaming and everything, I mean, I don't see it as something I'm gonna do until I'm like, okay, I like these 8 songs and I'm gonna do vinyl. So I'll probably just keep releasing singles until I just hone in on 8, maybe 8, 9 songs for an LP, and make a record, and that'll probably be the next physical release I do. But it's odd. I mean, I'm sure you see this with all music getting released. It's I mean, I could do a record, but people want video for everything. It's like be kind of difficult to go make 9 videos. So I was just kind of doing things one at a time. I mean, there's a bunch of songs I haven't released that I've been doing in all this, and I've been kind of releasing the ones that have videos. So at some point a record will come out, but I'm gunning for I'm gunning to just get the right 9 for a vinyl LP, because I haven't I mean, when I started the band, we were at, we were in the world, in the height of the CD world. So all that stuff came out, CD, cassette, and all those type of things. So I'd like to make a record LP, because I've never, just because of the time that I've been an artist, it never happened. It was just always other mediums. So and now vinyl's popular again. So that's my goal. If anything, just as like a bucket list thing, or just an achievement of like, hey, take the 12 by 12 and slide out the record and like get that experience, and do it. It's yeah, I mean, for lack of a better thing, I want to do a record, and it's not just about releasing a collection of songs. I want to release it specifically on that medium, and that's the when I release a record, that'll be the way I do it.
Well, it not only takes us back to us growing up in the 60s and 70s, but it really is the hottest format now, and it's hard to believe that. I say it should never have gone away, because it went from where you could get records for $3.99, $4.99. Once they came back as a quote specialty item, now they're $30, 25 and cheap. But it is what it is. As long as people are still supporting, physical formats and supporting their bands, go see them live, buy a T-shirt, of course, get whatever format you can. It was great after gotten rid of all the turntables and receivers and everything, to be able to bring that back, because of course I never got rid of the records. There are to me there.
I got at least the covers and stuff. I have a bunch of stuff still on the wall. I love that. There's something about the experience. There's a physical experience to it with the album, and I mean with having a record in your hands, and it's real. I mean there's a smell to it. You don't get that.
Yeah,
you don't get that.
You crack that cellophane, and you just smell the vinyl coming out.
You don't get that with a download.
No, and when you drop the needle, just hearing a little bit of crackle, just hearing a couple little pops, something heavy is about to happen, and it's the prelude to the masterpiece.
And it's a sound. It definitely is a sound. I mean, on the studio end, I've been in the recording world for a long time, and the medium is different. Nothing sounds like it. It's 30% more mono in the center. It's a different sound, and the records, all your favorite records from that era, were produced and mixed specifically to perform best on that medium. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's fun. I love. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, because I'm looking to do it. So I've gone back through thinking about my experiences with vinyl, and the sound and mastering elements and everything. It's like, here's a record. This is an interesting story. So Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. That record, when you hear it, has a sound to it different than the other records that came out right around that time. Sounds more like, a 70s record, actually. It sounds more like an older Aerosmith record, or Nazareth, which was Axl's favorite thing, and that type of record. And they mixed the record, and it got mastered for vinyl, and then all the digital masters you hear are a transfer from that original lacquer master, so it sounds like a record. And like, there's something about that, which I think is part of the reason why there's a classic sound to that. In addition to, obviously, it's great, the playing, the songs, everything. Obviously, all the obvious boxes you check that make it, one of the best debuts of all time. But the sonic element, and how that triggers your brain in what you hear is, I think that stuff is real, and that's an example of something that sounds, that even though you hear it on a bunch of mediums, it sounds like a classic vinyl record, because that's actually what you're listening to. So, interesting side note. I get into this stuff pretty deep. I'm into it.
Yeah, well, being a musicologist, we can't get enough of not only the stories behind that, but the art of writing a classic song and making a great record and producing and mixing and engineering and mastering and all that, because it all matters. It's
Yeah.
like we talked before about some of the pioneers of rock and roll. Yeah, it was very, very raw, very basic. Even the Beatles were recording those records on 4-track, but
Yeah.
you can only imagine how primitive it was when Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon and Howlin' Wolf and John Lee Hooker and Chuck Berry and Little Richard were making those records. It was probably live to acetate or whatever they did. It was just, it was something prehistoric, but there was
And
something
there's
raw
something,
about the performance.
yeah, I mean, there's an honesty in it. I mean, you take all that high tech out and it just has to, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and like you look at all the original rock and roll and the earlier stuff like that. I mean, those records are like documentary audio capture. Like it's not like how people make records, I mean, they'd go in, play the song twice, pick which one was better, and that's it. You're done. I mean, you cut a whole record in an afternoon because there was no, hey, I want to do it 95 times. There was no, hey, fix this, fix that. You just go in, hit it, and it was what it was, and that's the honesty of it. And like we've been talking about AC/DC obviously so much that even though the AC/DC records are more produced than that, the the early stuff is raw and honest, and that's what people react to. It's like, it's what the fact that it's not, I mean, it's perfect in a rock and roll sense, but the anomalies of, Bond's voice cracking or Angus's guitar goes a little bit out of tune after the solo or whatever. That's the real shit. I mean, that's what that's the honesty and the authenticity that I think people just go towards. I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, anybody can make a perfect. I mean, forget the song, the lyrics, and everything, but production-wise, making a record where everything is perfect and in tune and everything's in time, that's no big deal. You need a laptop. Making something honest and authentic, that's still difficult.
Yeah, well, we can't wait to spread the word. It is JOETOWN from the band of the same name. And you can go to JOETOWN.com and keep up, check out the band, all they have going on from Connecticut to the world. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
Got it. Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Rock and roll forever.